Hello, and welcome to the Radiant Mission Podcast. My name is Rebecca Twomey, and I'm here with my awesome co-host and sister, Rachel Smith.
Hey, everyone.
We are on a mission to encourage and inspire you as you're navigating through this life and with your relationship with Christ. We are currently in a super fun and exciting series on Pharmakeia. And we have been talking about the history of Pharmakeia, aka medicine. And today we are taking a little bit of a turn, or I guess not really a turn, but more of a, getting to a point.
Yeah.
Because in the first part, we were really focused on the word, the roots of the word, Pharmakeia. And then in the last part, we really focused on the symbolism that began with the ancients, the Greeks, and mythology, quote, mythology, aka likely Nephilim.
Mm-hmm.
And what we want to talk about today is where we are with medicine today. And, we did connect that symbolism that it started with the catechist all the way back in, the mythological times, where there is the serpent that's coiled around a staff. And that is still the image used in medicine today. And then there was also the cup that is used to symbolize the cup of pharmacy that is still used today. So there are still those images, but what does that have to do with modern medicine aside from just the imagery and the word? The fact that nothing has really changed, it's still called the same thing and they still use the same images. Besides that, what else is there? So we actually wanted to dive into connecting this to Rockefeller and how Western medicine became what it is today, because it honestly didn't happen that long ago. But at the same time, it did. It happened long enough ago that none of us would have been alive and we wouldn't remember. But we have some different historical accounts. Now, it's not necessarily, it's both easy and hard to find certain information about the history of Western medicine. I mean, you could literally Google or YouTube Rockefeller and you'll see, we were laughing about this right before this, a ton of videos on, the power, Rockefeller power, and the history, dark history exposed. And, you can find a lot of stuff about this. So this is another topic. Again, do your own digging, but also be cautious that there is a lot that is suppressed and hidden, as you're going to hear in some of this story that I'm sharing with you today. So I actually found there's a lot of articles out there that I found in my own research, but my favorite one that I want to plug a little bit came from a website called Meridian Health Clinic. And they are more of the natural approach to health type of folks. Now, I could reference 100 different people, but there were just a couple of things that were standout that I wanted to focus on. They wrote a great article that is called basically Rockefeller and how he created the business of Western medicine. Because that's what this is. Western medicine is a business.
He's like the Hermes of modern medicine.
Thank you for making the connection. So if you remember last episode, we talked about Hermes, who was Zeus's brother.
I think he was Apollo's brother.
And
then Apollo's son was Asclepius.
That's right.
Asclepius.
And Hermes was the quote. I would say quote because I hate that they're called gods, but he was the quote god.
Little G god.
Of commerce. And he is where the catechist symbol comes from. So it's pretty ironic that there is a tie between commerce and quote healthcare. So it's a good connection to make between the last episode and this one. And in this article, the author really dug in, and maybe I should call the author's name's Eric, so I'll just say Eric. So you guys know what I'm talking about. He gave a lot of details, but I'll give you guys a couple of things. John D. Rockefeller. He was born in 1839. He died in 1937.
So almost 100 years old.
Yeah,
Wow.
98 years old. Old man.
Not a lot of people live to be that old.
If you look at pictures of him and the last years, he
Yeah.
looks like he was already dead.
I know. I've seen.
Scary.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
reminds me of what is that guy in Star Wars that's like the baddest evil one of them all?
Emperor Palpatine.
Maybe, yeah, that's like, dead and gone and like a hologram or whatever.
Oh, that's in the
Sith
newer
Lord
Star
or
Wars
something.
movies. Yeah, yeah. I see the connection you're making there. He's real like creepy.
Real creepy. Yeah, that's what he reminds me of. And honestly, what he's done with medicine makes him even more sad and creepy, but so he is considered the wealthiest American of all time and the richest person in modern history. He is most famous for securing a monopoly in America's oil market. And that's what everybody hears about. That's the focus.
Right.
Usually, when you hear about Rockefeller, it's all about oil because by the turn of the 20th century, he controlled 90% of all petroleum refineries in
Wow.
America. And the corporation he had was called Standard Oil Corporation. And that was later split up into the goodies we know today: Mobil, Chevron, Exxon, all that good stuff. It was
So we have him to thank for still being on gas cars,
yeah, sure. We can
or
thank
the fact that we are in the first place.
he didn't invent it.
No, but
He
he funded it.
he is the one who figured out how to monopolize it and make
Right.
the most money off of it.
Yes.
So
Yeah, because wouldn't this same time have been when Edison was making his inventions, and also Nikola Tesla,
yes,
who was
this was during literally during the exact same time. Thomas Edison, he lived from 1847 to 1931. So
okay.
they were literally like the same ish age.
Yeah, and then Nikola Tesla was a rival to Edison, and one of the reasons that Tesla was run out of town is because he discovered and was creating inventions for free energy, so that could power entire cities and our whole country on almost nothing that would cost us anything, whereas Edison and I'm sure Rockefeller funding scientists like that were like, no, we need to stick with a resource that will make us a ton of money, not free
It's true.
energy.
And I think perhaps because Nikola Tesla was a little younger,
He worked for Edison at one point, like he was his like apprentice or something.
well, Rockefeller was born in 1839 and Nikola Tesla was born in 1856. So he had a good 20 years on him.
Yeah.
That he already knew a lot more about business. And so it was like he knew how to squash out the little guys.
I think that was I have studied Nikola Tesla a bit, and I've actually even been to a museum that had a really good exhibit on him, and they really made Edison seem like a bad guy. Like all the children were like booing Edison. It's pretty funny. But I think that was one. Nikola Tesla coming a little bit later, being a little bit younger, I think that was not only was one of his disadvantages, but also, like you just said about him not being as much of a businessman. Like, I mean, I think there's many reasons that his inventions were not, used at that time, but he literally was run out of town and then painted as like a crazy person essentially, and he died penniless when he was a genius. And
That's the story of the day with Rockefeller and why that's literally his MO. He is, man, what is that book I always mention to you?
The Merchants of Doubt.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you knew what I was thinking. Merchants of Doubt. Everybody should read that book for sure. Actually starts by talking about the cigarette campaign and how that's kind of one. I'll back up. The idea of Merchants of Doubt is if you can create enough doubt about something that people question it, then you can use that leverage and corner a market.
Yeah.
And Rockefeller is the king of Merchants of Doubt, in my opinion, after
Oh.
all that I've read about this. And we're going to talk about what that has to do with medicine.
Well,
In
you don't become the richest American of all time doing nothing. So let's hear more about this
yeah,
impressive
so
guy.
right at the same time that all this stuff with oil was happening with petroleum, the scientific world was getting excited about these petrochemicals, the newness of the day, and the ability
Yeah.
to create a variety of new compounds from oils. So of
Right.
course, the the most exciting being that beautiful plastic.
Oh, geez. And now it's like destroying our planet.
Yeah, good old plastic. But organic chemists, they knew that oil was going to be bigger than just like plastic junk, plastic
Right.
toys. So scientists at the same time as, people were figuring out, okay, oil, we can use this for vehicles. Oil, we can use it to create new compounds. We can create plastic. We can create all kinds of different products. But then the scientific world was also figuring stuff out about the basic mechanics of life and human health. And this
Mm.
was when they discovered really how essential vitamins work, like B1, B2, biotin, vitamins A, C, D, so on. So that time it did help them to take a step forward with people that were suffering from a lot of vitamin deficiencies that lived in really terrible situations. There was still a lot of unsanitary living going on. So people had things like scurvy and rickets and stuff, and that
Yeah.
helped with those people. And this is really what was leading or led to the science of recreating vitamins in labs.
Mm.
And I found it interesting because Rockefeller died in 1937, but 2 years before he died was when they made the first vitamin. Vitamin C was the first vitamin to be artificially synthesized in Switzerland. But, so it was different things were happening at the same time. This was the Industrial Revolution. This
Right.
was big things happening in the world, so to
Yeah.
speak. But what does this have to do with Rockefeller? Let's back up 20 years before this vitamin C thing. He was smart enough to see what was going on and see it as a business opportunity, especially as it related to petroleum, because he saw how petroleum and chemicals and the medical world could all work together for him to make some money, make some
Right.
cachet out of the sachet.
Yeah.
So Eric states in this article, and I'm just going to quote him because I couldn't say it or explain this any better than he just says it. So I'm just going to read it.
Okay.
There was a big problem with Rockefeller's plan. Natural and herbal medicines were very popular in America during the 1900s. Almost one half the medical colleges and doctors in America were practicing holistic medicine, using extensive knowledge from Europe and Native American traditions. Rockefeller knew that to get total control of the medical industry, he would have to expunge the competition. Rockefeller's first move was to use his vast wealth from oil to purchase part of the German pharmaceutical company IG Farben. Look up Farben's involvement with World War II. Now that he controlled a drug manufacturing company, he could move forward with his plan to eliminate the competition. In the early 1900s, there were a variety of doctors and healing modalities in America. Some of the medical specialties included chiropractic, naturopathy, homeopathy, holistic medicine, and herbal medicine. To eliminate the competition, Rockefeller hired a contractor named Abraham Flexner to submit a report to Congress in 1910. This report concluded that there were too many doctors and medical schools in America, and that all the natural healing modalities which had existed for hundreds of years were unscientific quackery. The report called for the standardization of medical education, whereby only the AMA, which was another monopoly, would be allowed to grant medical school licensures in the US. Certainly, Flexner's report did have some valid points, but unfortunately, the motives for the report were entirely driven by Rockefeller's desire for complete control of the medical system. Based on the report, Congress acted upon Flexner's recommendations and changed laws related to medical practice. Incredibly, allopathic medicine became the standard modality, even though at the time its main treatment methods were bloodletting, surgery, which was quite barbaric at the time, and the injections of toxic heavy metals like lead and mercury to supposedly, quote, displace the disease.
Wow.
With the new laws in place, Rockefeller teamed up with Andrew Carnegie and started funding medical schools all over America on the strict condition that they only taught allopathic medicine. Through the power of their huge grants, this powerful team systematically dismantled the previous curricula of these medical schools, removing any mention of healing, the healing power of herbs or natural treatments, teachings on diet, and other natural or non-drug treatments were also completely removed from medical programs. After removing traditional medicine from medical schools, Rockefeller made sure to secure his monopoly by launching a targeted smear campaign against his competitors. Homeopathy and natural medicines were discredited and demonized through the newspapers and other media of the time. Some doctors were even jailed for using natural medicine treatments, including treatments that had been safely and effectively used for decades before. In a very short time, medical colleges were all homogenized, and all the students were taught the same allopathic system, and medicine was now defined as a process of prescribing patients drugs. Quote, a pill for an ill became the mindset of American medicine. One shocking fact that this author, Eric, found when he was researching was that Rockefeller didn't stop at the US borders. He actually went to China to spread Western medicine. Upon hearing this, I actually got chills down my spine. Rockefeller wasn't content with just wiping out traditional medicine in America. He saw a bigger market on the other side of the world and wanted to remove traditional Chinese medicine from China. Luckily, his venture in China mostly failed, and the practice of traditional Chinese medicine was preserved for centuries to come. To quickly summarize what happened in China, the China Medical Board, CMB, was created in 1914 by Rockefeller Foundation, RF, and provided with a $12 million grant. The RF's goal was to modernize medical education and to improve the practice of medicine in China. They started by building a hospital in Beijing, which is the Peking Union Medical College. It opened in 1919, but they were unable to expand to other locations as planned due to mounting expenses. So, in short, the diligent work of Rockefeller and Carnegie was a smashing success. They crushed the underfunded grassroots competition. They created our current medical system today. This system continues wherein Big Pharma makes large donations to medical schools in exchange for teaching the medical students to use their patented drugs. As part of this system, many alternative treatments are criminalized, for example, by law, It is illegal to treat cancer with any modality except chemotherapy, surgery, or radiation. It is actually a criminal felony for a medical practitioner to treat cancer with anything but those three modalities. Why is this the case? Follow the money. The average cost of a cancer treatment is $150,000. So clearly Rockefeller and his precedents were keen to keep the monopoly on this one. And of course, the American Cancer Society was founded by none other than John D. Rockefeller in 1913.
Wow.
Hopefully, this post will shed a bit of light on the history of the current medical system. At the very least, we can all be less surprised when patients are treated like customers and when medications cost thousands of dollars per month. We should also not be surprised when we are faced with the fact that the cost of medical care in America rated number 1, yet the quality of our medicine care is rated at number 37, just below Costa Rica. Unfortunately, these are the natural effects that occur when our medicine system is run like a mega corporation instead of a service to the people. End quote.
Wow.
I love your face at the end of this.
You know what? All I could think about the whole time, and I don't know, maybe I knew this before, but it was just coming together for me. But is the Monopoly Man based on John D. Rockefeller? Is that who he's based on? Like that's what that game is based on him? Because it really, yeah, Google if Monopoly Man is based on Rockefeller.
He really is a big roller though. Although Monopoly is really more about real estate than anything.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so the original Monopoly game was published 88 years ago in 1935.
1935. Wow, that's right before he died.
1935.
Oh no, yeah, but he died in 1937.
Yes. The
So
patent for it came out in 1904. And
I wonder if it was like a cartoonist. You know how like there's political cartoonists who have always kind of.
so here's the early history. The history of Monopoly can be traced back to 1903 when American anti-monopolist Lizzie Magie created a game that she hoped would explain the single tax theory of Henry George. It was intended as an educational tool to illustrate the negative aspects of concentrating land in private monopolies. She took out a patent in 1904. Her game, The Landlord's Game, was self-published beginning in 1906. Magie created 2 sets of rules, an anti-monopolist set in which all were rewarded when wealth was created, and a monopolist set in which the goal was to create monopolies to crush the opponents. Several variant boards based on her concept were developed from 1906 through the 1930s, and then they both involve the process of buying land for its development and sale. So, not necessarily about Rockefeller.
It's not about Rockefeller, but that's who I kept picturing, that white top hat guy
with the
with
monocle.
mustache. Yeah. As you're just reading all of this stuff about Rockefeller, I just pictured the monocle.
So, if
that's crazy though.
The story of Rockefeller is not a story of deception, then I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Just as the serpent, going back to the serpent, he deceived Eve in the garden. I'm seeing here, so the Nephilim continued the deception. The story is continuing today. If anyone is a sorcerer, it's Rockefeller.
Well, yeah. And then think about that verse that you read last week from Revelation, that the nations will be deceived by
Pharmakeia.
by Pharmakeia. And it's like the core at all of this is deception.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I want to point to something else, which was of mention, and this is goes back to commerce and the relation to commerce and Pharmakeia / modern medicine. I came across an article called Selling Side Effects, Big Pharma's Marketing Machine on a website called drugwatch.com. of all things. But listen to this. Convincing people they're sick and need a drug is a multi-billion-dollar industry. In 2015, Big Pharma dropped a record-breaking 5.4 billion on direct to consumer ads. And it paid off big time for Big Pharma. The same year, Americans spent a record $457 billion on prescription drugs. The
Wow.
US and New Zealand are the only countries where direct to consumer advertising is legal. Americans also pay more for drugs and devices than any other country. The bulk of these ads appear on TV at the rate of 80 ads per hour of programming.
Programming.
I think I mentioned this on another episode, but this is a perfect time to remind people. Not even really to remind people. I have no idea how or why, but I started getting some magazines. I must have it came for free with something or something. I don't know. So they send me Good Housekeeping and they send me People magazine, which is hilarious because every time we get it, we just throw it in the trash. But as soon as when we first started getting these magazines, I'm like, what is even in this? And literally every other page is a pharmaceutical ad. So much so that then for the first couple of times, I did open the magazines and I would take pictures of the ads because I wanted to see what it is that they're trying to push on people. And the number one ad, the number one condition that is advertised for is eczema. The number
Wow.
one. And it's all different drugs. There's different ones, but every single magazine you open it, it's eczema, it's eczema, it's eczema, it's eczema. And we know that there are a number of things that can cause eczema, but the biggest thing being this toxic world that we live in.
Yeah.
And a lot of the quote drugs or injections that we are given cause eczema.
Right. So it's just one of those things that's a side effect of something that we're given as a drug. It
And then
sticks
you
out and
take the eczema medication and the list of side effects that's in the magazine, like you would think that they would put it in smaller print, but they can't put it in small enough print even still for not to not be 3 pages long.
yeah.
It's so that's the thing is these drugs that were created and are funded and are a part of this Rockefeller mission were created with the intent to make medicine a business. It is a
Yeah.
business. They give you a
And there's a
drug.
monopoly.
There's a monopoly on it. They're using funds to continue this monopoly. They've infiltrated the medical system. They only teach people about using drugs, not about actually healing the body.
Right.
And then you're in the cycle of the system because you take something that creates another problem and then you're in that constant thing. You're not actually solving the root cause issue of your ailment. They mentioned cancer in that article,
Yeah.
and it made me really it really hit me in a certain way because they say that 1 in every 2 people is going to have cancer in their lifetime, and that people get cancer, don't know they have cancer, and don't people, not everybody dies from cancer. It's not a death sentence, but we've been taught that it's a death sentence and that you need to have radiation, which
Right.
literally destroys the cells inside your body. You're literally destroying your cells. And there actually is a woman at my church who shared her testimony about she was diagnosed with cancer and she went through treatment, and she has so many now ramifications from
Mm-hmm.
that. And it was so heartbreaking to hear her story because now, knowing what I know, the doctor couldn't have prescribed her something else unless they said it in secret out in the parking lot, like, hey, go talk to a natural doctor who can tell you how to eat the right things so that you can shrink this cancer and let it go. Like,
Yeah.
they can't actually tell you that because, as the article mentioned, it is a felony, which is pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah. It really is. What a
So
mess.
just some things to mull over. I don't want to again, like, tell anybody what to do
Yeah.
or lead anybody in any sort of way, and this isn't medical advice, but take what you will of it, but pray on it,
Right. Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it is possible to get off of pharmaceuticals.
Hmm.
And not that I was on anything crazy, but I myself was in the cycle of antihistamines. I was in the cycle of always taking allergy stuff. I had all these allergy problems all the time. And I was constantly like, I was in that whole bit. And I was able to get off of, I don't take an antihistamine. Now, that's not to say if I had an allergic reaction that was anaphylactic, that I would be like, don't give me the EpiPen, let me die.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that we have to make these decisions for our own bodies and our own selves to say, where is the line? What is helpful and what is not? What is for me and what is hurting me? And again, we're going to be having a really incredible naturopath. I mentioned Dr. Vaughn, and he's also an iridologist on the show, and he's going to be sharing more about how to get off of pharmaceuticals. So he can tell you, because he knows how to do it. I don't. And really about partnering with God when it comes to our health and our healing, because his goal is to help people to actually heal, not to continue to suppress their problems. So
Right.
keep listening. There's so much more to come on this topic. And I know that Rachel and I we just pray that you ask for discernment from the Lord, and also peace as you become awakened to what is happening to the world that we live in. Because I know that when it first starts happening, you may be deeper down this hole, and that's why you're like really interested in listening to this episode, or maybe this is new for you. It can be really easy to feel stressed out and anxious and worried when you first wake up to this stuff. And I just want to encourage you to ask the Lord for peace, because he doesn't promise us anything when it comes to this earth. He doesn't promise that we're going to live forever, or that we're going to live to 80 or 100 or to 60 or
Hmm.
healthfully. The Lord doesn't make those promises to us, but he does promise to be beside us and with
Yeah,
us and to guide us. And that is
absolutely.
really all we can do, is ask
Yeah.
for him to teach us.
Yeah, definitely.
What else,
Absolutely.
Rachel? Any other villains we want to talk about today?
No,
We've got
but
some modern day sorcerers and villains, but maybe we'll have to do that at another time.
Bill Gates. Not even,
Totally.
not even a doctor. Um, but well, neither is Rockefeller.
That's a good
So maybe
point.
there's a connection there.
Oh yeah, great points that you're making here. Right at the
Really?
end, as we're talking about the medical system and the fact that they were not created by anyone who even really has the first sense about
Right. Yeah,
reality.
really wealthy businessmen who have weaseled their way into the medical system and come across as these altruistic heroes when they're actually making billions of dollars off of human lives. And one other thing about Rockefeller that we don't even need to get into, though, is that he also funded the modern school system.
Oh, you mean the
The way
boot
that
camps
schools,
that those kids have to go to?
yes, Rockefeller funded that as well. So
We have
his,
to do an episode on programming, because it just goes right, and indoctrination. It just goes right along with all
yeah,
of it.
I heard it said, so you kind of mentioned like all of these, big names in the industrial revolution, and that's, Rockefeller's up and coming, and he ends up being, one of the wealthiest people in all of history during this time. It's
Mhm.
his amount of money back then is equivalent to, more than anyone has today. But I've heard it, and I'm not making any definitive statement here, but I've heard it said before that there was something spiritually that's been going on the past few hundred years. Because
Yeah, you think?
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, for thousands of years, all of time,
All the
things have
time.
been going on spiritually. I mean,
Sure. Exactly.
the days that Yeshua was walking the earth and after, and what the early church had to go through.
Yeah.
But to go from horse and buggy to airplanes flying in the sky within 150 years or something, and this is all in this time period of the Industrial Revolution when Rockefeller lived. I'm just throwing out there the possibility that I've heard before, that the part of the spiritual drive is Nephilim coming back,
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
they're the spirit of the Antichrist that they are partnered with,
Mm-hmm.
influencing some of this stuff.
Makes
So
sense.
yeah, so it's like a lot of people could look on and say, oh, we live in the greatest time ever with modern medicine, and that's God's hand in it. But then look at how much deception and evilness and scheming and money has been made. Oh, and that reminds me of one other thing. You know how we were talking about the symbolism last week for pharmaceuticals, the what was it called? The staff with the
The
snake?
catechist?
Yeah, the catechist, yeah. Do you remember years ago when I sent you that symbol for the money sign, which it showed the S as a snake
Mm.
with the lines
Well,
through
that
it?
makes sense that money would be related to the serpent because it's the root of all evil.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and the Bible says that you can't serve two masters. Either your master will be God or money.
Mm.
So
Interesting
anyway,
connection. Yeah.
yeah, I'm just kind of free flowing a bunch of random thoughts here,
We're here at the
but
end.
yeah,
Well, I have
exactly.
one more to add to yours, and this is probably going to make people mad, and I'll probably get eaten for this because people love this man. But I would like you all to think about the one Rachel mentioned, Nikola Tesla, and who is the man who picked up slash profited off of his ideas and now has his own vehicle line and is now trying to bring AI to life and has implants inside of pigs to give them thoughts and control their minds. And I could keep going on. You guys know who I'm talking about.
That he wants to do that to people. Yeah. So
Elon
this,
Musk.
yeah, this
I
same.
get the creepiest vibes from him. And it's very funny. Rachel knows this, but when Mike and I first got together, my husband, Mike, was like literally Elon Musk's biggest fanboy. He was so obsessed and he watched everything that this guy ever said. It was honestly at the time, like looking back on it, it was complete idolatry of how much he looked up to him and followed him and wanted to be him. That so much to the point that it like raised red flags for me. I'm like, what is up with this? What is up with this? And as time has gone on, he's now on the opposite end of the spectrum and also he sees the evil in what is happening, but he's presented as this like such a nice guy. Except now the truth is really starting to come out because he is having children with all these witches,
Yeah.
literal witches. Look it up, and
Yeah.
has all these things that are like written on his clothes that
Oh yeah.
are demonic.
It wasn't recently at the Met Gala, his coat said like it was like Satan's night or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's getting more obvious, which is good, but it's kind of sad that it takes it getting him needing to like literally be seen in public with like Satan's daughter in order for people to be like, oh, something, oh, maybe something's up here. Or the
Yeah,
fact that he is trying to spread his seed by any means possible and says he wants to have like a, dozens of children spread out there, spreading his serpent seed. Just saying, you heard it here first.
so creepy. Yeah, I think it just goes to like say kind of the thought that I was getting at, that there's some evil spirit that's been
Yes.
a part of empowering evil humans since the Industrial Revolution, and it's happening even more so today. So just mull on that for a little bit. Let that keep you up at night.
I looked it up to see what it said, and
His coat.
yeah, Elon. Well, it actually wasn't his coat; it's something else. But he wore a satanic Halloween costume
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
but his coat did have something to say on it. It was
Okay.
a red and black outfit that has a Baphomet carved into the chest plate, which
Oh, yeah.
is even more blatant and obvious.
Yes.
And the costume was called the Devil's Champion. And
Oh,
Baphomet with
great.
an upside down cross on it.
Even better. He sounds like a real good guy.
Sounds like somebody we want to be following and getting his chips implanted into our brains with.
Yeah, you want to see creepy too, like just look up his mom. She's also, yeah, but
Yeah,
that's
the roots go deep. That's a whole hole you go down.
yeah,
Oh,
just
the
think.
jacket you're talking about, it says Novus Ordo Seclorum, which means New World Order.
Oh, right. I'm mixing the two outfits up. Yes, yeah. And just think about, it's interesting. Isn't Elon Musk known as, I think it kind of changes year to year, but the richest man on earth today?
Yep.
And that Rockefeller was,
Money is the root of all evil, sis.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that Elon has been trying to kind of prop himself up as some kind of like free speech, devil's champion. So like it gets a lot of people backing him that maybe would have not, and just it's all deception. So just
Yes. Be aware, be
be
awake,
careful, be careful who you idolize. That's
keep
for
your eyes
sure.
peeled. Yeah, for sure. And don't sweep it under the rug either. I mean, if somebody shows up in a Halloween costume, calls himself the Devil's Champion, and has a Baphomet on it, I think it's pretty obvious what they're into. So just saying.
Seriously. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope this has been not too terrifying for you and that you don't have nightmares tonight about what's going on in the medical world today. But again, we have some guests that are going to be coming on that are going to really help us recenter this on the Lord and his design for our bodies, not the world's design. The world's design is to make money off of us and keep us sick and keep us suppressed and keep us separated from the Lord. Because the truth is, it's not easy to worship when you are oppressed, when you are sick,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
But when you are free from illness and things of that nature, like you're able to reconnect with the Lord in a positive way. So keep listening. Thank you
Yeah.
for tuning in and for being on this journey with us. And as always, if you'd like to follow along outside the podcast, you can join the mission on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at The Radiant Mission. And if you're loving the show or you found this episode to be particularly interesting, I was going to say fun, but it wasn't that fun. Well, I mean, it was fun for us, but I don't know if fun is the way I would describe talking about the evil villains of our time.
Right.
Share it with a friend so that they can hear the truth too.
But they can have fun too.
They can have fun too, getting dragged into this whole this darkness and deception. Anyway, today we're going to close with a Bible verse from Rachel's favorite book of the Bible, Revelation 18.
Because I love to have a good time.
I'll let you read it.
Okay. And the light of a lamp will shine in you no more, and the voice of the bridegroom and bride will be heard in you no more. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth, and all nations were deceived by your sorcery. And with that note, we are wishing you a radiant week.
See you next time.
Bye.